Well, it's been a bizarre week to say the least as Toronto FC kicked off their MLS's back tournament. We'll break it all down today on Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks Live every Tuesday here on Footy Talks Facebook, simulcast on Waking the Red, and of course in the Zoom chat as well. You can join us or you can ask questions and interact with us as hosts. My name is Mitchell Tierney, editor at Waking the Red. And in just a few minutes, we'll be joined by Toronto FC digital host Maria Papadakis. Ask her a bunch of questions about all things Toronto FC related. But first, guys, we'll start with Jeffrey. It seems to be Onyx week. I know you've been waiting to wear this kit on the show for a while. How are you doing?
It's necessary. It's a necessary evil. We need Onyx power for game 2. Guys, I'm sure Mike's got thoughts on this, but I don't really get why it was a thing that TFC didn't leave the hotel when DC United did, and all the machinations behind that. Mike was saying before we started that it appears that TFC's got a bullseye on them with respect to the shifting moral codes of the Mickey Mouse tournament bubble. But I just don't get it. Like it just seems like such a weird hill to die on.
Hey, I guess first of all, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, where's your manners, Jeff? Come on.
Straight into the straight into
no consideration. No, but yeah, we were talking a little bit earlier. It seems like a lot of teams around the MLS's back tournament kind of aren't happy with TFC because they've sort of, I don't want to say bending the rules, but they're using everything they can to kind of get an advantage, whether that is going to the field late, whether that's maybe traveling to the MLS's back tournament late. So a lot of teams are kind of unhappy about that because they think TFC is trying to get this competitive edge. As Michael Bradley pointed out, that like we're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, this isn't about necessarily like winning your first MLS's back match. This is about people's livelihoods and people's safety. So I think TFC were kind of unhappy there after the whistle that DC United maybe said something, especially, since they were kind of unhappy and used that as motivation to go at TFC because they felt TFC kind of had a leg up on them. So interesting to say the least, that little skirmish after.
Yeah, I think certainly in terms of, what Toronto FC's done so far, you can look at it different ways, but for me, I think you have to give every credit to the club because I think it's been pretty clear that they care a great deal about the safety of their players. I know a lot of people would say they shouldn't have come to this tournament at all, and I can understand that point considering certainly, all the positive tests we've seen so far and some of the safety concerns. But, if you're going to go to the tournament like Toronto FC did, I think in terms of keeping your players safe, they've done a pretty excellent job coming in late, making sure, when whoever it was showing symptoms in Toronto, that they got their tests back, that everything was fine there. Once they get to the game and there's potential positives on DC, they refuse to play the match. I think they've done just about everything right in terms of keeping their players safe so far. And I think, again, they deserve plenty of credit for that. And, it's maybe going to rub some people the wrong way and you can look at it as trying to get an advantage or whatever. But again, like the pandemic, I think, like Michael said, we're in a pandemic and we have to consider that first before anything else. Jeff, do you have a point on this?
Well, I think it's important to also remember that Americans forget that we're Canadian and that crossing the border adds a wrinkle to it, right? So, we can't be measured against the New York Revolution in terms of arriving at the bubble. There's certain stipulations that are specific and exclusive to the Canadian teams that I think are being kind of swept under to create this narrative of, Toronto, the evil. But that's just me.
Hey, man, Toronto's always going to be the victim. Come on. If we're talking soccer, we're talking baseball, we're talking hockey, whatever you want to say, basketball, Toronto's always going to be the victim in the league. So,
true enough.
Hey, especially when we're good, teams don't like to, give us a credit. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
I like the if we're going for an episode title, I think Americans Forget We're Canadian is pretty good episode title, pretty good quote right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly a bizarre week in general. I mean, you start with the game initially being delayed because Toronto FC gets in late. I guess what were your guys' thoughts when you wake up on Sunday morning and are looking? Both of you are covering your faces, but you wake up Sunday morning, get the coffee in you in Jeff's case, and then realize that this game's not going to be played, even though they were that close to getting there. We'll start with you, Jeff.
2 coffees. It was 2 coffees. So I was quite caffeinated, and that did not bode well for my blood pressure when the SH asterisk T hit the fan. It was awful. It was impossible to snap out of. I was in a state of shock pretty much all day. And then of course, my Gunners played wonderfully well. So my Sunday was a complete write-off. Absolutely. Oh, and the Yellow's Marble Run premiere got postponed as well. So it was the trifecta of tears for me on Sunday.
It's not a great Sunday, eh?
No. Tell us about your Monday though, Mike.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But what I will say is, man, for Sunday, we were 4 months in the waiting. I was buzzing. Like the night before, I got my pregame match thread up. I was up till like 2 a.m. I was hyped for the game. I was also watching UFC, but I was also hyped for the game. And then I wake up at 7:30 on the Sunday, all ready to go. TFC comes in. TFC's on par. They're dropping their lineup late. Everything's normal. And then I get a minute before kickoff. I get the official email, the official press. Really, 1 minute before kickoff, 1 minute before 9 o'clock, I get an email from the league saying the match is officially postponed. It's just, I was devastated for a little bit, for sure. I can say that. But I'm happy that we bounced back on Monday and things got underway.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly. And as I said throughout the show, you can ask questions for us or our guest in the chat on the side. But we will bring on Maria Papadakis right now. She's in the waiting room, I think. So we'll just wait for her to come on right now. But yeah, I think very much the same. It was an interesting Sunday morning. Maria's here now. Hey, how's it going? Joining us now, of course, Toronto FC digital host and in-stadium host as well. Maria Papadakis, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I'm sure everyone's really excited and happy to be talking about the Reds once again, I'm sure.
It sounds like the audio's cutting out a little bit there.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get that fixed.
Let's see.
Oh, that sounds.
There we
Does
go.
that sound
Perfect,
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds
sounds
better.
Maybe the
Yeah.
AirPods aren't working today.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, they're pretty touch and go sometimes.
Oh,
But,
yeah. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining us. And what a wild week it's been. We've seen multiple schedule delays, down to the last minute on Sunday, but we finally got to see Toronto FC play yesterday, and the bazaar didn't stop there for 80 minutes. It was an incredible performance from the Reds, and then kind of disappointing at the end. What did you make of their first game of the tournament?
You know what? It's definitely an adjustment for every team. You're going in there, you're going to Orlando, and during a pandemic, you're playing in at 9 a.m. Their pregame meals at like 5:30 in the morning. It's definitely an adjustment, but I think they tried to make the best out of it yesterday. I think the first half of the game was incredible. I think coming out there, you saw Pablo Piatti, Michael Bradley, 2 guys you haven't seen play in a long time, and I think everyone's chemistry was really, really good, and you could see that they have been working together. And I think Ayo had an incredible performance. A lot of people online were skeptical about starting a young guy first game back after so long, and I think he just proved everyone wrong yesterday. I thought the entire team did pretty well. Obviously not the result they wanted, but first game, a lot of adjustment, and it's a lesson learned going forward. It's still a point.
Nice. Maria, I want to ask you, just building off that a bit. You probably know Ayo better than most fans do. What can you sort of tell TFC fans about Ayo Akinola?
He's a young, determined soccer player. He goes out there, he works, he's a great personality, he feeds off the team, he wants to go out there and learn off of everyone else. He takes criticism so well. I know he works really well with the other forwards, and he just takes from what they've done and puts them into his own play, And I think for such a young guy to be where he's at today, it takes that determination, it takes that willingness to want to learn to be where he's at. And I think he's done such a good thing. And going forward, I think he's going to be one to watch as he gets older and older.
Oh, right on. I'm excited to see what he brings forward. And, not only just Ayo, just a lot of the young guns that are up and coming through this team. I feel like this year in particular, TFC invested heavily into their youth. And we're starting to see that kind of manufacture itself on the field. So that's good to see. Let's look ahead a little bit to Montreal there. And are we going to see a lot of these young guys, do you think, on the field?
I mean, you know what? I can never fully guess it. I gotta say, Greg Benny has some ways with the lineups,
true.
but I do think throughout this tournament we are going to see a lot of those young guys come out. You saw it yesterday. Greg Benny wants to change his roster throughout the game. He wants to change that lineup. He wants to get everybody on the field, and I think being TFC, they love using their youth. They love using their youth. Pardon my English. They really wanted to get everybody minutes. They really want to develop those young players. So I think this tournament's a great way to do that. And I definitely think going forward, we're going to see guys like Shaquille, Rocco, Ayo, and more of them get more minutes.
Nice.
This is the part in the rundown where I go into a non sequitur. But how has your job changed since the pandemic hit? It's all about keeping people engaged and involved from home. So what are the challenges and what have been the victories?
It has definitely changed. I can't lie. Filming Red Alert on your own is definitely an adjustment. We just got back to doing that, and everything's over a computer. So basically, as much as you have your producers that help you week by week, you're basically doing everything here. So you're on a lot of calls. They're trying to tell you, this is the angle I want, refix it or do this, do that. So it's a lot of back and forth. And trying to mold your content for fans is the biggest challenge, because as much as everyone's on their computers and on their phones, you have to find something that you can do quickly that engages people, but it's also to what's relevant. And there isn't a lot of things that are relevant. It's only certain things. So you also have to find things that you don't repeat yourself over and over and over again. So it's definitely changed. I mean, it's gotten a lot busier since the MLS's back tournament has started. But just with everything on my end, with other networks and TFC that I've been working with, it's been busy, but it's been good, and it's been an adjustment.
Yeah, and if you do have questions for Maria, again, use the chat or the Q&A to ask those. But I wanted to also look ahead to the Montreal game and kind of ask what lessons Toronto FC can learn from this, because I think, in a lot of ways, this tournament is about balancing rest and results, sort of. I think kind of the way they approached that second half, in a lot of ways, I don't know if it was completely wrong, because you don't want to burn out everyone in the first match of a tournament, but at the same time, you do want to make sure you're securing the results, especially when you're up like that. What can they kind of learn from what went wrong there?
I think Michael Bradley said it the best himself. I think in this tournament, even though you're up, you can't let yourself go a little bit. And I think that's what he said they did, in the second half. They kind of just took a little bit of a step back. And that's when that team maximized on those opportunities. And I think going forward into Montreal, it's obviously a huge rival of ours. Even though we're on neutral turf, it doesn't mean the rivalry won't be there. So I think they're going to have to go out there and stay at their 110% the entire game. And I think that's a lesson learned from this game, is don't let your guard down and just keep going until that final whistle blows.
I guess I'll step in here. So give us a bit of background. How did Maria Papadakis end up as the social media host for Toronto FC?
Yeah, well.
Tell everyone who wants your job.
And what do we have to do?
I've been very fortunate. I went to school for sports media. I was at Ryerson for 4 years, and in my third year, I was looking for internships because I wasn't doing anything that summer. I was like, I want to get my foot further into the door in this industry. And I was applying everywhere. And I had ended up actually getting an interview with TFC and their media relations team. So fast forward, I had gotten the internship and they kept me on for the entire year. So I was there for the MLS Cup year, but I was an intern. So I was working for TFC2, TFC, working behind the scenes. And my entire internship, I really just made it clear to my bosses that I wanted to be on air. I wanted to be a host. I wanted to do this. I was doing unpaid content for TFC2. People probably weren't even watching it, but I was like, I'm going to do this anyways. It's experience. And fast forward, after my internship was done, the positions had opened up and I applied, and they had taken a risk on a 20-year-old kid at the time. And now 4 years later, I'm still here. And it's been a hell of an experience. I love it there. The team's amazing. The staff is amazing. And I couldn't ask for a better job.
For sure. Did you, were you a big TFC fan before?
Yeah. My dad is a huge football, soccer fan. He instilled it into me and my sisters when we were kids. So when they opened up a team in Toronto, my dad was like, hell yeah, we're going to be fans. Watch this team.
Yeah, it sounds like a match made in heaven. You've obviously taken that and you've gone with it. Chef kind of touched on it a little bit and how your job sort of changed. How much do you miss being at BMO Field? Let's get real. I mean, it's second to none, right?
I miss it more than anybody knows. I remember someone had asked me midway through, the entire full quarantine. They were like, "What do you miss the most? Like, are you going to be excited to go out with everyone and be with your friends?" And I'm like, "No, like I don't miss anything else that people feel. Like I just want to be back there." I'm like, I'm through the games. Like I love it there so much. Just being under the lights, I miss it a lot. And the other day I was driving on the Gardner and I was driving by it and I was like, it's my second home. Like I haven't been there in forever. So I definitely do miss it, but hopefully we'll all be back soon and it'll resume. But
yeah, fingers crossed. And I think they're mentioning that they're going to try and resume the tournament, or after the tournament, they're trying to resume the regular season. I'll put you on the spot here a little bit. What are the odds we see those games, come up to Toronto?
I don't know how to answer that one. Honestly, with everything going on right now in the world, it's definitely a hard decision to make whether they resume it and they bring everything back to Toronto. I mean, I know Toronto's looking to be a hub for a lot of places, and it's just a matter of whether everything progresses in the next month or two, and whether everyone is still going to be happy about playing during a pandemic and the whole movement that's going on right now as well. I just think that it's a big decision to make.
For sure, there's a lot of variables that can transpire between now and then. Fingers crossed that we do get to see everyone back at BMO Field, even the Reds just back at BMO Field. So thanks for that. I appreciate that.
We got a question from Facebook. Maria, how did you become a Liverpool fan, and how did you feel about the season?
Well, shout out to my dad once again. It was all his doing.
Oh, no.
I remember growing up, my dad was always having Liverpool games on, always talking to us about it. My dad would tell me to watch their games when I played, and then he would tell me to go outside and try to do what they did. So I remember having to watch them, and I'd go outside and practice, and it was but that's how I became a Liverpool fan. I fell in love with the team because my dad did, and when I thought about their season, I thought it was great. I mean, we won. So told everybody, I was like, don't at me. We're going to win this year no matter what happens. And we did. So I was really happy about that. I think Klopp is the best coach, best manager out there. And I think the team in general has just put themselves forward and has shown what they can do with little. So the team is amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was happier that soccer was able to come back in the pandemic than Liverpool fans. Being able to actually see out that season and that it wasn't canceled certainly was exciting. But I think Maria, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And come on, you Reds, and we'll see you guys in the next game. All right, guys?
Let's go.
Good. See ya. Yeah, thanks again for Maria Papadakis for joining the show. Some cool insights there, I guess, into how she got where she is in her career and how things have massively changed during this pandemic in terms of how video content and everything else is produced. So we really appreciate having her on. And but guys, let's move on here to going back to the Toronto FC DC match. We'll start at the beginning. Let's start with the first half here, because for 80 minutes, I really do think, and having watched most of the games of this tournament, this was probably the most cohesive team performance we've seen at the MLS's back tournament. Toronto FC looked great. A lot of their players delivered excellent performances, but obviously we'll talk about the second half later. But for a lot of that game, it was excellent, wasn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, that whole right side was insane. I mean, Oro, Pablo, and his new best friend Paz were just terrorizing. That right flank was what the combination play, the creativity for the first time back after 4 months, and our first time seeing Pablo Piatti was really impressive. Really, really, really impressive. That was my big takeaway. And then my whole other page of notes is about the second half. So
I think that's fair enough. Michael, those thoughts on again? We'll start with a bit of positivity here before we get into what. Yeah. the second.
No, but straight up, like you said, name me a team so far this tournament that's had a better 80 minutes than Toronto FC did. I mean, you can maybe say Columbus, who won their opening match 4-0 against, I think it was Cincinnati, but that's like playing.
Yeah, that's the caveat there. It was against Cincinnati,
right?
It
It's
was
like
also a derby.
playing
It was
beat.
also the derby, guys. So.
Right.
Yeah.
There's that too, right? So I mean, Toronto FC realistically could have and probably should have won this match by either similar margin or something around there. So the first 80 minutes, I believe, was actually the best bit of football that we've seen. DC had nothing. It was like the second half, the game was boring, and that's exactly how Toronto FC wanted to play it. They sucked the life out of that game, and yeah, like you said, we'll get into those last 10 minutes in a bit, but those first 80 minutes, it was fun to watch. They were moving the ball quickly. Michael Bradley looked great. He
Oh my
played on
God.
his feet.
Yeah.
I mean, can you believe that? I mean, it's been 8 months since the last time he actually played a competitive match. He's a workhorse on and off the field, and that paid off for sure. Paz also looked fantastic. Paz was in like mid-season form. His best position there is that number 10, and he came off in the 76th minute. So maybe that had something to do with this little second half collapse.
Yeah, 90. I think it was like 90 seconds in that Michael Bradley hit just a peach of a pass right into Ayo Akinola's feet, and from that moment onwards, he was arguably the best player on the pitch during that game. I think it was between him and Paz for who was the best, and I'd be happy either way. But one other positive we have to get again before we let Jeff loose is the performance of Ayo Akinola. We talked about it a little bit with Maria, but
yeah,
I think with Josie Altidore, we're not super sure how much he'll be available, at least during the group stage of this tournament and beyond. Obviously, we didn't see him at all in that first game. That was an excellent performance, and I think a really important performance. What stood out to me, and what's always stood out to me with Ayo, is his ability to make runs. Even if he's not the guy receiving the pass, he makes runs that open up space for other strikers. And especially if you're looking for a second striker behind Josie going forward, having a guy like that can come off the bench and do that is so important. And it's something that, quite frankly, Toronto FC has been missing for the past couple of years. So if Ayo can do that, going forward, it would be massive for the club. We'll start with Michael with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, poor Patrick Mullins.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a forgotten soldier there. But I had Ayo Akinola. I did a little top prospect kind of rankings there, and I had Ayo Akinola at number 5. But what I also mentioned was he had the potential to possibly skyrocket up this list at this point next season. And we saw it a bit when he started off last season. He actually started against New England last year in 2019. And if you guys haven't seen that goal, go look it up, because he scored another sweet curler into the corner. And then, obviously the way he started this game with that turn and the strike, he was able to connect on that. And I saw the other angle of the goal where it was behind Bill Hamid's net, and he just looked devastated. he did not expect that to go in, and when it caught the corner, he looked heartbroken. So it's good to see Ayo Akinola obviously kind of set up and kind of establish himself as a number 9. There were question marks around that, heading into the tournament, whether or not he would be able to fill that role. And as Mitch pointed out, thanks to his speed, thanks to his physicality, thanks to his hold-up play, thanks to his ability to run at defender, run behind the line, they're making use of that, especially in a 4-2-3-1 formation.
He missed a lot of chances, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he wasn't. It was a very good performance, but it can't be ignored that had he buried a few more of those chances, perhaps the second half might have gone a bit better. So.
I'll play a little devil's advocate here, though. You're getting those chances.
Yeah,
right?
No, fair enough. And
I think, he's a young striker. He's 20 years old. I'm sure he has to work on his finishing a little bit, but I think the toughest part to do is to get himself in those positions.
That is
And
a very
for
fair
a young
point,
striker, that's very, very good to see.
Yeah, certainly. I think, I think I side more with Michael on that, in the sense that yes, he did miss a lot of chances, but he was getting himself into so many good positions throughout the game, and if you have guys like Piatti, Pozuelo, Bradley, even Endo, who I think again in this game showed that he can really pick a pass very well. You're going to get those opportunities if you're making the right run. So he's done a good job of that so far. And obviously, as I said, it'll be critical going forward. For a young guy like him, though, now it's just about consistency. We've seen a lot of young guys come through Toronto FC and have some great individual single game performances, and then not be able to back them up. And we know how much Greg Vanney values consistency over just about everything in terms of his roster selection. So that's the next step for Ayo Akinola. And speaking of consistency, consistency over 90 minutes for Toronto FC. Obviously, you start that match, it's 2-0. The second half, again, they were seeing it out quite comfortably, and then of course the double center back substitutions and the 2 goals that follow. Yeah, Jeff, why don't we take it into the second page of your notes?
You buy the ticket, you take the ride. I mean, Greg Vanney is, a tactically minded coach. Sometimes you get a spectacular misfire like what we experienced yesterday. I mean, I don't own any books on football, soccer coaching, but I'm pretty sure on the back cover it says don't swap out your CVs in both CVs at the same time, regardless of what time it is, unless the world is ending. So, what was the game plan for the second half? Was it trying to play 45 minutes of keep away? Because, you saw Nick DeLeon come on, and I don't think I noticed a single one of his touches because he was kind of kneecapped. Like, he was sort of hovering around the touchline, and then when he got it, it was like his instinct was to attack, but it was sort of counter to whatever he'd been instructed. So you saw a lot of the front line kind of do that weird little dance in the middle of the field that to me just screamed that they were trying to implement the game plan, but it went against their natural desires. At least to me, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, you're facing a 10-man squad. You're up to nothing. I think I'm not sure if it was Ollie who pointed this out on Twitter, but could you be put in a more favorable situation than that? Obviously, Mavinga and Gonzalez. That wasn't the game plan for Greg Vanney to go in and change those guys. Those guys came down with cramps, and Greg Vanney said that I think Omar Gonzalez couldn't even walk, or he couldn't take another step. I think were his exact words. So his hands were sort of forced in a substitution then. What I would like to question is that 76-minute substitution when he's taken off Pozuelo. I can't even think off the top of my head who was brought in. Was it Gallardo, though? I think Gallardo came in for Payati.
Yeah.
Maybe
it was DeLeon.
It could have been DeLeon. But
yeah.
after Paz came out of the game, I mean, the life was already out of it, but TFC just had no kind of rhythm, no flow going forward, as I think, Jeff, you kind of pointed to it. They looked like they were trying to do something that they weren't comfortable with. And by the end of the match, it looked like DC was the team who had a man up, and TFC was kind of, holding on for dear life. Really, really frustrating. And obviously, Eric Zavaleta was right at the bullseye of everything, and it's easy to point him as the scapegoat. I mean, he didn't really do much to back it up, but you got to be better than that. You got to do better than that. That's just as Michael Bradley said, unacceptable after the game. There's no really excuse. You can't really point your finger at one person. It's a team effort.
Is that Aki? Yeah, Aki sent a question in, and it sort of relates this. And as well as Bradley played in the first half, I think a lot of people are overlooking his turgid performance in the second half. He was largely responsible for slowing the tempo of the game down to a walking pace and didn't pick his spots to speed the game up in the middle to deal the third and killer goal to DC. I'm going to add something in there. I think Bradley is got to shoulder a bit of the responsibility for the second goal. As much as we all want to pin the donkey on Zavaleta, I think there was a serious lack of communication there. And considering, how well we can hear Q yell keeper at the top of his lungs whenever he wants to claim a shot, which was something I really enjoyed from the first game of the tournament. We gotta give responsibility where it lays. And,
I agree with that, Jeff. I mean, he's your captain. If you see that your team is kind of falling out of the battle and they look kind of lifeless out there. It's your job to sort of ignite them. Obviously, I mean, we're sitting inside in our air conditioning in Toronto or whatever, and we're sipping on a nice cold beverage, and these guys are out there in the hot Florida sun, which they didn't want to be in the first place at this time of the day. So maybe that played a factor into it, especially with, Gonzalez and Mavinga cramping up, and maybe that's why TFC looked a little bit tired. It was the first game back in 4 months. Let's not forget that. So I do agree that Bradley does shoulder the responsibility there, because he is the captain, and at the end of the day, that it's your job to motivate your team. And if you can't do that, then
Yeah, I guess kind of building off that, I actually don't think slowing the tempo down was the dumbest thing they did. You would like to see them really push for that third goal, but I think there was a way to do that while still playing, the possession-based, let the ball do the work kind of style that they want to play at this tournament. Because again, you can go as hard as you can in that first game, but you don't want injuries. You don't want to burn guys out in the first game. And I do actually think that in some ways that was the right decision. Now, obviously, maybe they got the mentality wrong with that, but, on Michael Bradley, and again, this leads into the Montreal game as well. Yes, I do believe he can play 90 minutes against Montreal. Yes, I believe he could have played 90 minutes yesterday. How smart is that? At some point, he can, but he did look tired late in that game, and I think he's going to look tired if he plays Montreal as well. He is getting older, and he can still give you a good 90 minutes, but I think he can give you a great 75, and then maybe you can replace him. I think there does seem to be a real reluctance to take Michael Bradley off the field. I know he's your captain. I know probably of anyone he can play the most soccer, and he always has. But I wonder if going forward, Greg Vanney needs to look at that and recognize that even if Michael really doesn't want to, maybe at some point he should be coming off the field.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Vanney did address that after the game. He said that, again, it wasn't his game plan to, perhaps have Bradley play the 90 minutes. But in consultation with Bradley, ask him how he's doing and checking up in water breaks. And with the work that Bradley put in the offseason, I mean, Vanney was a witness to it. He said that Bradley was the first there and the last to leave always. He was comfortable with Bradley going the full 90. Are you going to tell Michael Bradley that he's not playing a full 90 against Montreal?
Yup.
The thing is, though, it doesn't really matter the player, right? Like, you need to be able to like no player is above the group, right? Like, you need to be able to tell a player that he has to sit. Again, I would not personally want that job, but nonetheless, again, it has to be smart. And of course, they have the sports science guys who figure all of this out and that sort of thing. But it's just one thing that I thought about. Jeff, you have a point?
I mean, Martin dropped a lot of really depressing stats. Martin Bailey, friend of our stats guy, not friend of, he's ours. And I don't remember what the stat was, but there was a lot of talk in the post-game pressers from MD4 and Vanney, sort of discounting that this blowing leads is an endemic problem in TFC. And I forget the number, but what was it in club history? It was something, I want to say
49.
Okay,
49 times.
49 times in club history this has happened. What are our thoughts on that? Do we think that they're right and it isn't endemic, or do we think that this was a bit of bait and switch to keep morale up inside the bubble sort of thing? Because the stats don't lie, and they hurt.
Actually, I think the stats do lie a little bit. If you look back and those 49 times, if we look back and we look at when those 49 times transpired, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that maybe 5 times were within the last 3-4 years, right? So 44 of those times are pre-2020 pre-Sebastian Giovinco era, essentially. So I think that it's a little unfair to kind of label them as that team that kind of gives up late leads, especially as Michael Bradley pointed out. They did do it twice this season, but it was a 4-month gap in between times, right? It was San Jose February 29th and July. They moved it so many times. July 12th, 13th.
Yeah, I think.
July 13th. July 13th against DC United. So yeah, I mean, it's not great to see the team blow 2 out of the 3 leads so far this season, but I think it's unfair to kind of label that as a reoccurring kind of theme.
Yeah, that's a fair point. With TFC stats, I mean, you've always got to go post 2015,
Yeah.
right? Because you look at the all-time series, even against NYCFC, who we just owned for the past 2 years. Well, NYFC started in 2015, so that's not good. But you look at like Chicago Fire, and we still lost like 1,000% to them by virtue of 2007 to 2015. Third time's the charm.
Yeah, no, for sure. Those are a wipe off.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook question here from Edwin. Isn't it highly risky move to sub out both center backs in any game? I'll take that just because. So Greg Vanney knows this more than anybody. This was a center back. He played center back, I think, for the internationally. He's in the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame. I think he got inducted this year, or nominated to be inducted this year. So he knows more than anybody how important it is to finish out a game with the same sort of center backs, whether it's Mavinga and Gonzalez or whoever it is that starts the game. The only reason why he did again sub out these center backs is because they came to him and told him they're cramping up. It's not he doesn't want to change that fluidity in the back line. So I think it's unfair to again point fingers at Vanney because his hand was sort of forced. Could he? I saw someone on Twitter mention this. Could he have maybe dropped Michael Bradley back and only brought in Lawrence Simon? Like that's great. I mean, I'm all for that. But
really, MB at CB, we saw that in 2018, and I still have scars. But yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's 2018, but. Zavaleta's an MLS Cup winner. Lawrence Simon, we know what he's done in his career. So these guys should be able to finish at a match with, 10 men. They're a man up and a 2-0 lead. That's still no excuse.
Yeah, I have a couple more points on this, but I think you covered it fairly well. But, I think, again, Gonzalez and Mavinga should be comfortable coming off in that situation, feeling that they've done the work they need to do to get that result. And also, I've been thinking about why he didn't stagger his center backs coming off, but I kind of forgot about the windows, right? Like, you only have so many windows to make substitutions in, so you could get yourself in big trouble if one of, again, you said they said Gonzalez couldn't really walk. If Mavinga gets kind of hurt in that time, then you're largely down a man until the next window. You kind of have your hand forced like that. So again, I don't think it was an ideal situation, but I don't know if Vanney really had as much of a choice as we initially thought he did. Because again, when the second he made those substitutions, I think just about everyone was like, what is he doing? You never want to destabilize a back line like that. But I think we should start looking ahead to the next game, of course, against Montreal Impact on Thursday night. Because we do have a couple of questions on this, both on the chat here and in Q&A. Let's start with Jordan's question, which is for the TFC Impact match. What changes do you make to the lineup, if any? Does Pozuelo have to play the entire match?
I guess, yeah, I'll step in here. I'll take that. So, yeah, you're going to see, in my opinion, you're going to see a flurry of changes. First, we don't know the status of Chris Mavinga. We don't know the status of Omar Gonzalez. Another thing I didn't mention yet was also the status of Justin Morrow, who I think it was Achilles tendonitis was the word that they used. And that's why he came off at halftime. It wasn't because, Super Sub Richie was ready to go, as much as UFC fans love to see that. It was because Justin Morrow came out with a nagging injury. So that's 3 out of the 4 black line. That's question marks. I dropped an article today, and Greg Vanney spoke about Jonathan Osorio and Josie Altuve. He gave us an update on that. So just reading into his words, you can find all of it on the Wake in the Red website, but just reading into his words, I don't think we're going to see either of those players against Montreal. So we're going to be looking at a lot of depth options. Also, Ayo Akinola, he took a little bit of a knock there towards the end of the match, so we'll see an update on his status. Hopefully he'll be all right to start the game. But, we'll see some squad rotation. TFC's depth is really going to be tested here against Montreal, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly. And I think you of course have to look forward. If you think you have Josie for that last match, if you think you have Oso for that last match, then maybe you start some of the guys like a Delgado or an Ayo again, just knowing that you'll have the opportunity to rest them in that third game. Jeff, any points on lineup going forward?
Well, I mean, the Impact always come out against us, right? They're as desperate for, well, possibly even more desperate for a win than we are. TD's not going to play Sammy P at right wing back again. It's going to be a 401 derby because the other term, what is it, Canadian Classique, is awful and I'm never using it. My thoughts on that is it's a 401 derby. It's gonna be lit, and hopefully we take our licks from round one and we come back a bit more tuned into the peculiarities of this MLS's back Mickey Mouse Cup.
One more thing I want to add before we move on from that is Greg Vanney, even though it is Montreal, even though it is a 401 derby, he's not afraid to rest his side against Montreal in an important match. If we just have to think back to last season, the Canadian Championship final, the first leg against Montreal, they put out essentially their B team there. And, they came away with a 1-0 loss, which kind of set up an uphill climb for the for the second leg at BMO Field, which we all know they lost in penalties. So, I mean, just because they are facing Montreal, don't expect Toronto FC to go all for it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Let's finish up with the last question we got, which again has to do with the Montreal game, which is, what are your guys' thoughts on Montreal? Did anyone stand out from their game against New England who might cause us problems? And the player he mentions is Wanyama, who I thought actually was quite excellent in the middle of the field. But going forward, I mean, it did not look great for Montreal. They did not have a lot of chances. I think they had that one chance where Rudy missed, but other than that, it wasn't great from them going forward. So, anyone stand out to you guys?
TT, he's got a player manager. Seriously, just lace up and raise hell. You could sort of tell that he was itching to do it near the end of the first game. Yeah, I mean, I have general thoughts on the tournament. I've really been enjoying the case of the changing Adidas logo size in the middle. It's like they've got a constant focus group. Sometimes it changes mid game. The minutiae of the tournaments. I mean, that opening that Justin Morrow and Ali Curtis had a big thing to do with in his planning was truly unbelievable. And then to have a player of the stature of Thierry Henry take a knee for 8 minutes and change. Again, we can say, oh, it's exhausting because we've seen it in the Bundesliga and we've seen it in the Prem, but this is ground zero. So MLS had a responsibility to do it, and they also had the negative aspect of not getting to do it first. So to come up with something that didn't feel overdone, but also felt specific to the tournament, I think was a massive coup. So my hat's off to those guys. And yeah, just the technical side of it is massively entertaining. I mean, which network is getting better at dropping the swearing and not plugging us into a hot mic in the control room by accident. When a player approaches the net, is he or is he not going to be eclipsed by one of those weirdo black digi boxes that they've got as goal line hats? Is he just disappear into the phantom zone? These are the things that I enjoy. Last night's LA Houston game was pretty fabulous. Also, that was a really good game.
Oh yeah, I could talk for days about that one, but just getting back to the Montreal
game, by the way, great preview of the Montreal game. I'm just kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm here for the chaos, guys.
Yeah, you just got a quick 30-second insight into what Jeff's brain's like. So just jumping out left, right, center. No, but all seriousness, I'm happy you did bring up that Thierry Henry moment, Jeff, because that was really, really powerful. I think, and the next morning I woke up and checked the views. I think it was at like 600,000 views. People are watched that. This isn't just another person taking a knee.
Exactly.
It really sent a message, and for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, that was really, really well done. And he said he kept it simple after the post game when he was asked. He was just like, "Yeah, it's just a paid tribute. That's it." And I think because I think his actions spoke louder than words there at that moment, and that was really cool to see. Getting back to the Montreal game, I'm all for this Wanyama Bradley matchup in the midfield. It's gonna be so gritty. It is gonna be such a grind there in the midfield. I mean, who's going to come away with a 50-50 ball between Michael Bradley and Victor Wanyama? Come on. Come on. I'm all for that sign
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
What I will say is, again, Montreal's attack's a little bit disappointing. Balou Tabla, a young Canadian there, former Barcelona product. He plays for Montreal now, and he hasn't put it together yet. I think if he kind of finds a way to get more minutes on the squad and puts it together, they can maybe have another option there up front. But it's really, really lacking post Piatti era.
Yeah. He's bulked up, hasn't he, Baloo? He looks like he's put on quite a bit of muscle. Yeah.
He is still
Yeah.
only 21. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's room to grow.
I actually did think, in terms of Montreal attackers, he came on late in that game. I actually thought he was probably one of the most positive ones. I mean, he was beating guys off the dribble. He put in some great crosses, and he almost scored at the end with a pretty nice strike that he created on his own.
Strike,
as far as we've seen Balou since he came back from Barcelona, that was probably the best I've seen him, and we know he does have the talent. I mean, Barcelona doesn't just pick up random guys off the, so yeah, this, he's definitely still an excellent player, and as far as the Canadian men's national team goes, that'll be one of the guys that certainly everyone will be watching. It's not an easy position to break into the national team with right now, considering some of the guys he has ahead of him. But I think Balou definitely has the talent to do so. So. Definitely we'll be looking forward to Thursday's match, and I think we'll wrap the show up there. Of course, we have another show coming up here on Footy Talks with Footy Talks Weekly at 3:00. Christian Jack, Stephen Caldwell, Luke Wildman, and a special guest, Ayo Akinola. So you'll definitely want to be in the homestand audience for that. Head over to homestandsports.com right now to secure your Zoom audience spot. Ask Ayo some questions. As we said, a player that's going to be very critical to Toronto FC at this tournament and even going forward if he can keep up performances like this. But thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, as always, Kevin and Maria Papadakis for joining us as well. And see you next Tuesday, everyone.